Now, Business Unity South Africa President, Chancellor of the University of the Free State, Professor of Practice in the Johannesburg Business School College of Business and Economics, and Chairman of Bidvest Group Limited. And let's not forget being a best-selling author. With a resume like this, it's only fitting that Professor Bonang Mohale is being lauded. He's been lauded in Reputation Poll International's 2023 list of the 100 most reputable Africans. The selection criteria are integrity, visibility, and impact. Professor Mohale joins me now in studio. Prof, good afternoon, compliments and congratulations.
Thank you so much for having me, Braden.
When I saw this and I read this, and I mean, I'm just going to, I don't know if many of your viewers would have seen this. It's covering individuals, this list of Reputation Poll International, across the continent from diverse sectors, including things like governance, leadership, entertainment, human rights, advocacy, education, and business. And you are one of those very prominent South Africans who've made it to this list. There are other South Africans as well that I've noticed who are in it. When you saw this, what did you think about?
So first, I was extremely energized and emboldened that South Africa, a small country out of 55 African countries, has almost 10 people on this list of 100. And to look at the things that they're measuring, I mean, this is a leading global strategic consultancy that honors, amongst others, reputation and transparency over and above integrity, visibility, and impact. And the four categories are actually quite key because they look at human rights advocacy, they also look at governance and policy in general, and then the last two, it's leadership and, of course, in business. So to be included amongst such luminaries and giants I can only say I think it's absolutely humbling. So I feel touched, honored, and humbled.
It's a very significant recognition, I may say, and having known you and interviewed you over decades in your different roles in our country here. I mean, you are in the company of, as you said, of luminaries, but some of them are currently in government, others are doing good in business like you, and other people are contributing in the world of science and art and all of that. So what should this then mean for you in your work? You wear a number of hats. We sometimes talk to you at eNCA as the president of Business Unit South Africa. Sometimes you've got opinions you express from the academic perspective. We talk to you about that. But you're also a business leader in your own right.
Absolutely, because nobody is just one thing. You are Braden, you are my neighbor, you are a father, you are a husband, you are an uncle. So in all of that, it's always useful to be guided by a few principles. For me, one of those is, can I be a social justice activist, a defender of democracy, and can I be a change agent? Because we are born of pain and suffering. That South Africa, after 370 years of colonialization, is still in a spot of bother. In fact, it was really on Tuesday, the 3rd of January, that we woke up to the news that our national debt has now exceeded 3 trillion South African rands, which means the debt servicing costs alone are now 170 billion. The percentage is approaching 18, and we know that in the world, most of the countries that are now getting into a default position are approaching the magical 20% of servicing this debt, and we are almost there.
If it happens, what does it mean?
What it means is that we have succeeded in indebting and, in fact, consigning our great-grandchildren into a life of indebtedness, because there is no way in our lifetime we're going to repay this debt. It simply means that our debt to GDP ratio was approaching 80%, excluding guarantees to the more than 743 state-owned enterprises and companies. Now, when you include that, it's 110%. We have to work 10 times as hard.
Eskom, for example, is owing now just under 400 billion rand. government is guaranteeing that. I mean, it is included in this number you're talking about. Am I correct? And all the other state-owned entities, whatever they are owing, is part of this 3 trillion.
You're absolutely correct. But what really should concern all of us is that in 2022, we have actually lost 560 billion rands just to the economy. What this means is that each time we get to stage 6 load shedding, we lose up to 6 billion a day, every day. We have now lost probably 6,400 gigawatt hours of available electricity. What does it do to your household? But what does it do to the economy? In fact, we are wiping out an entire percentage point from the GDP as we accelerate towards absolute darkness.
I was going to say that the forecast was what, maybe a growth of 1.1% or between 1 and 2.1%. Now, from what you've said, we might not even get there in terms of what is happening. Now, is the load shedding the biggest factor here? I'm asking this against the background of what's happening today as the ANC, the governing party, is concluding its 55th National Conference in a hybrid session, and most of their top leaders are in Bloemfontein. Everybody else is around the country. And one of the issues my previous guest, Dr. Ongama Mtimka, was saying was that it's about the economy. That whatever resolutions they make, they have to realize it's about the economy. And how do you bring in those who are on the margins of the economy? How do you stimulate, for example, the informal sector?
I'm absolutely aligned, and it is absolutely appropriate. Because when you look at 1,001 challenges we are confronted with as a country, often with conflicting priorities, if I were to pick only 4, number 1 on that list, I would say it is rooting out and defeating state capture. Because it doesn't matter what we do, the quantum is so big, we have stolen almost 1.5 trillion in just the last 5 years. The second one is this notion of a reliable and stable and predictable energy supply. Not just our preoccupation with Eskom, so we should take it from whence it comes. The third is youth unemployment. Because at almost 74.9%, not only are we asking for trouble, but we are actively inviting it. The last one has to be the issue of dealing with the economic structural reforms. Because if we don't change what we have done in the last 28 years, the next 28 years will be more of the same. As we stand, we now have 10 million young people who are not in employment, education, and training. We have 55% of the population that is living below the poverty datum line. We have 6 million young people who don't know their fathers.
Now, as a business leader, what would your advice be to our politicians, especially those who are still who are still governing us, going forward?
I think only 3 things. Number 1 is to make sure that we grow the economy. Because if the economy is not growing, very soon we'll be talking about the redistribution of poverty, not the redistribution of wealth. Number 2 is about ensuring that we bring back the self-worth and self-respect of most South Africans just by focusing on oversized job creation. The last one, I think, is about recognizing that if we don't address the issues of the stubbornly high levels of unemployment that then lead to increasing levels of poverty, that then leads to increasing levels of inequality. The events of the 17th of July 2021 are going to happen again and again and again.
Should government be in business? I mean, why is government owning state enterprise? Shouldn't they privatize them? Shouldn't they let business do its thing and then create the jobs?
Everywhere else in the world, government has a critical role in creating an enabling environment in which business could thrive. Because if you look at our own situation, the private sector before 2010 was employing 13.5 million people. Government, in all 3 spheres of government, 2.3 million people. Therefore, when the private sector is transformed, the whole country will be transformed. Therefore, for me, I think we need to address the fundamental root cause of our problems, and that is an economy that excludes the majority of our people.
Okay, finally, I want to end where we started, which was the reason I asked you to join us today on eNCA, Professor Mohale, is that you've been included in Reputation Poll International's 2023 list of the 100 most reputable Africans, and of course the criteria being integrity, visibility, impact, and the human rights thing. Are you going to be changing now? I mean, you are among these luminaries. I mean, what does it mean for you going forward now? Are you going to be doing stuff differently, or are you going to carry on sticking to your knitting for what you've become known for?
I think I will be much more deliberate, purposeful, conscious, but also intentional by saying it's not about us. It's about the majority of South Africans. Because those that are helping others are completing God's work. We find more meaning and purpose in helping others. So the title of my first book says, Lift as you rise. Not once you have risen. It says, in the process of succeeding, it's who we become. Can we be better humans? Can we move from humankind to kind humans, where we simply allow most South Africans not to reach their fullest potential, but just to reach their potential, to have a job, to have a roof over their head, so that they can also want the same thing that you and I want for our children. A roof over their head, water that is clean and accessible, but also you go to the wall and press the button and electricity comes on like it used to in the past.
Thank you very much. Professor Bonang Mohale, once again, congratulations. And you having made it to the Reputation Poll International's 2023 list of the 100 most reputable Africans. I mean, you are in company of luminaries. There are 9 other South Africans, as you've said, who've made it to this list by the Reputation Poll International. Well done to all of them. One of them happens to be a friend as well, Tebe Kalafeng. I'm sure you know him very well. He's Africa's brand guru. Dr. Judy Dlamini is also on that list, and we know her contribution in the world of business. And there are others. Just out of my head now, I'm not excluding anybody, just who I can remember just off the cuff. Thank you very much, Professor Bonang Mohale. As you know, he's Business Unity South Africa President. He's a Chancellor of the University of the Free State. He's a Professor of Practice in the Johannesburg Business School College of Business and Economics. And he's also the Chairman of the Bidvest Group Limited.